Hello, our lovely nightmarish creatures. Before we get into our double feature creepy tales, we would like to start off with thanking our sponsor, once again, Noble Somatic Wellness. Just because it's spooky season doesn't mean that your wallet should be afraid to visit Erica Hoff just to remove those aches and pains, or treat yourself to a spa while enjoying some lovely prizes. Visit Noble Somatic Wellness on their website today for more ghastly fun for you and your significant other. Links will be in the description below. Next to address is that we wanted to help out our friend Kyle Hester and his team finish their production of Preacher 6. If you are able to help donate to the production team so that they can finally produce their movie, that would be awesome. If you can't, that's fine. We will be posting their trailer at the end of this video as a little bonus from us to you. For now, enjoy tonight's creepy tale.
Ever since I started dating my girlfriend, Tori, things have gotten weird. Don't get me wrong, she's simply amazing. We always have a great time no matter what, and just talking to her leaves my heart racing a mile a minute. But there's something about her that seems to trigger this reoccurring nightmare that I really don't understand. Someone suggested talking about it to see if the nightmare would end, or see a shrink to see if it's something that I'm not understanding about myself. Either way, I can't stop thinking about it. Here's what seems to happen before the nightmare starts. We finally go on a date and try to improve our relationship because we've grown pretty close. We go to bed and I think to myself how life is perfect the way it is, and then slowly drift away to sleep. The nightmare starts with the fact that I'm lost in the woods somehow, traveling for a while in the dark. I see a well-lit gate just up the hill. I've never seen this place before, but the mansion that seems to be a good distance from the gate seems beautiful and inviting. That's when my girlfriend invites me in. I try to ask her who lives here, or for that matter, does this belong to her? With a creepy giggle, she simply says,
No, my love. This is our home. You know that. Now, come on. I've missed you.
She pulls me along and I feel warning bells in my head telling me that this is a horrible idea. It warns me that if I go inside, things are going to get worse. I force myself to memorize details such as the car that I somehow have the keys to, the sky being pitch black as if something swallowed the stars themselves and left everything in a pitch black state. I turn around to look to see if I can see the forest that I just came out of, but it too is swallowed up by the darkness. The only thing I can see is everything on the property. Anything outside of it seems to no longer exist. I told Tori, "Baby, maybe we should leave." In a demonic voice, she shouts, "No!" I begin to panic more as I demand for her to let go of me. "Damn it, Tori! I said let go of me!" She ignores me as I tell her she's hurting me. She never looks back as we inch closer and closer to this beautiful wooden double-sided door. Their bright wooden color fades to black as I enter. The second I get free from her grasp, I run as fast as I can, with her laugh echoing. I begin to think that I've escaped her as her footsteps die down. I feel a sense of vertigo, but I know if I collapse or gag from the nauseating feeling, she's going to find me. It becomes a game of who can outsmart who. Like a scared rat, I hide along the rafters somehow. I can't help but feel as if she's only toying with me. This is where the nightmare ends, but it doesn't stop here. I only wish it did. Despite the nightmares, Tori and I continue to see each other, and I ask her for her hand in marriage. That's when it got worse. Way worse. The nightmare played out as it usually did, but things were different. This time, men that I have never seen before chased me throughout the woods. They tried to stab and shoot me. Little did I know why. I managed to hold refuge in what I thought was an abandoned home. They stopped looking for me the second I got in the house. As I started to stand up and get a hold of myself, I looked around and fear turned my blood cold as I realized they bade me back to the fucking mansion on the hill. Damn you! I couldn't help but to yell out.
Yet it's you who are damned,
said the whispering voice. Unfortunately, I knew exactly what it was. It was a nightmare version of Tori. I'm getting out of here, I said sternly. That's when she showed herself as this large, centipede-like creature.
Try all that you like. You won't escape again, but you will be mine.
She immediately tried to attack me and almost took my right arm in the process. The chase began almost immediately. I ran up the stairs until she caught up to me quickly on her many insect legs, each giving off a large tapping sound that made my skin crawl as I kept running. I jumped off the banister as she screeched in anger. As soon as I touched the ground, she destroyed the banister and I ran into a random room, barely escaping as I tried to wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up! Then my alarm woke me up. I woke up in a cold sweat and had never been so happy to wake up to an alarm before. However, as I went to turn the alarm off, her voice appeared in my head.
This isn't over!
It said angrily.
I will find you, my love.
It whispered in my mind. For the rest of the week, I was on the edge. I now knew that whatever this creature was had the ability to pretend to be my fiancé. Despite this, years had gone by without a single incident, so I naturally assumed that I was in the clear. Then one day, sometime after we had our second child, it happened again. Same nightmare, only this time, I got brave and challenged the creature. The wager was a lot higher than I had wanted it to be. If this time I failed to escape before the dream ended, my children would be doomed to this exact hell that I was in. Clocks ticked on rapidly to mock the fact that I was running out of time and needed to make the choice. I finally agreed, and everything went so quiet you could hear your own heart beat. I quickly ran up the stairs knowing that the front door wasn't an option. I hadn't considered that I would need to save my kids in the madness. In fact, the only reason I knew they were involved was because they both screamed and cried for me. I felt myself breaking to pieces at this, but I knew I had to press on. I screamed for them over and over until I finally saw a large detailed door that made me feel uneasy. That's when the fake Tori ran at me. I tried to bash my way into the door, but it was hard to do as it was a heavy wooden door. The kids screamed for me again as Tori came closer, and finally I made my choice. I quickly outsmarted her, cutting my hand in the process. I used a knife on the door as the creature pretending to be my wife screamed in aggravation. I stabbed the door several times before the door finally opened and revealed my children. There wasn't much time as I quickly rushed to them and picked them up. I ran throughout the house as the creature's centipede form came after us. My poor innocent children screamed and cried into me as the creature's razor-sharp claws grazed my back, sending me tumbling down the stairs. I used my now bloodied body as a human shield.
You can't escape, my love! You will be mine!
She shouted with excitement as she crawled quickly down the now broken stairs.
The fuck I will!
I shouted back. Suddenly, my heart raced as I could feel that time was counting itself down. Tears fell from my face. This was it, I thought to myself. My children and I were doomed to be this thing's plaything. I shut my eyes tightly as I told my crying children that their poppy loved them more than anything in the world. The creature's massive, toothy maw was about to clamp down on us when I saw the part of the house Tori and I dreamt about having. Our own greenhouse. I didn't hesitate or even try to make sense. I ran as fast as I could, with my kids gripping me so tightly that I thought pieces of my flesh would be bruised or scarred. It didn't matter. With the last of my strength, we broke through the glass part of the greenhouse. The creature screamed in defeat as I tried to prevent shards of glass from impaling my kids. It wasn't over. The creature didn't care that it lost and that we won. She just wanted to eat and torment us. What made the endeavor worse was the clock was still ticking. It didn't make sense until I quickly realized the mansion grounds counted too. My eyes widened as the realization kicked in. It was now up to me to think of something fast. I quickly remembered the vehicles and tried to run to it. As I did, I looked down and saw my left leg was covered in glass shards. "Damn it!" I screamed as I kept moving. Every single step felt as if the glass seeped deeper in my skin and into my calf. It was an unrelenting torture that I wouldn't wish upon anyone. She turned back into my wife and walked slowly to us.
Baby, it's dark outside. Just come back with me. We can start over,
She said seductively. I threw my children into the car as I ignored her. Suddenly, her face contorted into a huge smile with jagged teeth. I know I should have tried to save my wife, but my son and daughter need me more. Besides, whatever took over my wife wasn't planning on giving me a chance to save them all. I hotwired the car and immediately drove it backwards, slamming the gate open. We had barely made it out, but the creature looked amused as if our fear was more than enough as it watched us drive away. I woke up crying, covered in sweat, and I ran to check on my kids. They were both asleep as I sighed with relief. My wife went to check if I was okay. I felt stupid as I talked to her about the nightmares. She assured me that they were just nightmares and that everything was okay. She went downstairs to make breakfast in her bathrobe. I went downstairs to see her after I brushed my teeth. I was honestly relieved that despite how much the pain felt so real, it was all just a series of bad dreams. As I entered the kitchen, I realized that I barely heard her after I brushed my teeth or any of the kitchen utensils being used. I looked at our family table and saw her favorite cross stabbed into the table, upside down. My wife isn't known for her pranks and is a religious woman, so I knew she would never do this. That's when to my left, I felt a dark presence. It was similar to the creature in my nightmare. I looked around as I quickly realized where I was once more.
How? We escaped! You lost!
I shouted as the house formed into the mansion.
And who is we? Did you think I would simply let you leave me?
No one can ever leave me!
Suddenly, my children were standing next to me, but their presence wasn't of fear of this creature. It was of a successful hunt as they grabbed me by my wrists tightly. They morphed into the men that chased me throughout the forest as their grip became almost unbearably tight. Tori walked up to me, her mouth becoming rows of jagged teeth.
As I said, my love.
You will be mine.
The last thing I would ever get to hear was the clock ticking away before there was a sudden crunch.
Until the day I die, I will hate that building with every fiber of my being. Maybe once upon a time it was a magnificent building filled with wonderful memories and stories as big as its hallways. But as for me, it will forever be a reminder of the biggest mistake of my life. I had a friend named Joseph. Joseph was a good guy who absolutely loved his girlfriend. They seemed like the perfect couple to everyone they spoke with. That included me. That was until I kept getting random phone calls from him. He seemed so scared that I thought to hang up a few times and call the cops. To this day, I wish I did. Joseph was never found in his 2-story home with his beloved girlfriend, Tori. It left many others suspicious of foul play, but I knew better than that. His phone calls still haunt me, even as I write this. You might be asking yourself what made the phone call so unusual. Lord only knows the cops did as they tried to figure out what happened to them. He would tell me that Tori kept appearing in his nightmares and tried to claim him as her own. Dude, sounds like even in your dreams she still wants to marry you. Marriage isn't that bad, I said to him jokingly, hoping to calm him down and see reason. But it was pointless. He told me more details of the dreams, just to see if that would put an end to it. It honestly freaked me out and made me begin to worry for his safety. It wasn't like I believed in all that dream bullshit, but the way he kept telling me his dream, it was like I was there too. Tori seemed nice. I liked her, and she came off to me as someone who was very kind. So a part of me regrettably told him to get his head back on his shoulders because it was just a dream, and Tori was a really good person. I'm not sure what possessed me to say what I said next, but I said, "Listen, describe this mansion to me, and I'll look for it. If I find it, I'll prove to you that it's all in that thick head of yours, okay?" Joseph described it to me in great detail, from the red flowers that grew on it to the color of the mansion, the yard, and everything itself. As I wrote it all down on a piece of paper, a sense of dread washed over me. It felt like something was trying to warn me against this, and it would be the last time I would hear from the friend I considered a brother to me. He hung up the second that I was done writing all the details down, as if it was exactly what he was waiting for. I know that I should have brought this to the police when they interrogated me, but I didn't think they would believe me. And now looking back, I can't exactly blame them. As for the mansion itself, I spent weeks endlessly looking for it, but I didn't find it. I was about to just give up and head to bed, but I never made it to bed. It appeared that in my exhausted state, I rested my head on the table next to my laptop and fell asleep. I woke up and I could smell the earth beneath me. It was apparently a windy night, and I felt lost and confused as I looked around to figure out where I was. All I could see was a dark forest that was only lit by the moonlight. I walked a dark road and hoped all of this was a dream. Everything felt so real. The trees, the branches snapping under my bare feet, and even the wind chill all felt so surreal that I began to think that I was drugged and kidnapped from my home. I honestly couldn't tell you why I kept walking in the darkness, but I did. The forest was so quiet that I could hear my heart beating fast in my chest and in my ears. That's when I heard it. I heard footsteps running in my direction, and immediately I ran as fast as I could. Suddenly, something grabbed me, and I began to try to scream in panic, but whoever or whatever it was quickly covered my mouth and prevented me from screaming as it shushed me. I didn't know what was worse, not being able to see the person who was covering my mouth in the dark, not knowing what was chasing me, or the fact that I would die in some forest miles away from my home. Suddenly, the voice whispered 2 words into my ear. "Wake up!" I woke up to my phone alarm. I barely moved out of fear as I processed where I was. "Fuck," was all I could say as I slowly got up and realized that I drooled on my desk. I cleaned it up and headed to work. I tried my best to shake off the dream, but the more that I kept thinking about it, the more my hand gripped the steering wheel. "That voice," I said in a shaky voice. "It couldn't have been Joseph, could it?" I questioned myself as I tried to stay focused on the road, a feat that seemed almost impossible to do, but I made it in. I worked as a real estate agent. It's what makes the guilt hit me harder. I sold that home to Joseph and Tori at as low of a price as I could without getting in trouble with my boss. I joked that it was their early wedding gift. My boss called me into his office later. The deal he wanted to make was both awful and disgusting.
Look, if I really didn't believe in your abilities to do this, I wouldn't offer it to you. So here it is. That property that you sold to your friends years ago needs to be sold. So, sell it, and there very well may be a promotion in your future.
He said it in such a cheerful tone that it made me sick to my stomach.
You've got until Monday to decide, or a different realtor will take it off your hands. But it's an opportunity that I don't think you should pass up.
I left my boss's office and went about my day. I tried so very hard to forget that whole interaction that I missed a sales meeting with a newly wedded couple looking to buy a house 2 houses down from Joseph and Tori's home. I offered to make it up to them, but they didn't want to hear any of it. I was a little resentful about this, but I understood, and I moved on from it. 2 years went by, and I, despite feeling it was wrong to do so, sold Joseph's house twice, but didn't get the promised promotion at work. I felt it was justified, so I didn't fight it. I didn't have the strange dream again about that forest until I had the urge to look inside that house and find out for myself what exactly happened to Joseph and Tori. As for the others that bought that house, the mother killed her husband, children, and her own mother. When asked why she did it, she simply said, "If I told you why, I promise on the lives of my family, you wouldn't believe me," and began to break down crying. Later, she confessed that an evil version of her mother made her do it. It reminded me of how Joseph viewed Tori in his sickening nightmares. But it wasn't enough to convince me that something was wrong with the house. In fact, I brushed it off as some horrible incident and moved on with my life. That was until my boss told me that I had to try to sell it one more time or else the place would be left vacant. Personally, I would have preferred it that way, but once again, a promotion was on the table, and like the asshole that I was, I took the bait. This time, I sold it to a middle-aged man named Andre Jones and his dog Latte. I asked, "Why Latte?" as a conversation starter, and to try to warm him up to the idea of buying the home. Andre apparently served 2 years in Afghanistan and wasn't afraid of any potential ghosts. To him, God was on his side, and therefore no one could harm him or his beloved chocolate lab. As you can guess, something happened to him anyway. When the police found him, they never found the former Marine's dog, but they found him frozen in fear in a corner. He died with the look of pure terror on his face, and the property was never sold again. Until I offered my boss to buy it. My boss was hesitant at first, and didn't think it was a good idea due to the fact that I was a suspect in both murders just for selling the house. But after telling him how ridiculous it all was and willing to pay more than what it was worth, my boss finally caved and sold it to me.
Are you sure about this, Julie? I don't think...
"I'm absolutely sure," I said as I interrupted him confidently. We filled out the proper paperwork, and I had the keys in my hand. I couldn't go to my new home until the cleaners cleaned everything up, but I didn't care. I took it as a chance to look over the history of the home while listening to what little recorded conversations I had between Joseph and I. I began to feel sleepy until I finally found what I was looking for. Apparently, the home was originally meant to be a mansion in the 1800s. However, during the first week of its construction, 400 workers disappeared. 300 of them were slaves, and the rest were prisoners that needed to perform community service. The foreman, Roger Collins, was blamed for their disappearance. His only defense during his hearing was, there were men in the woods and a woman dressed in black who guided them. The judge wanted Collins institutionalized, but an angry mob convinced the judge to hang Collins by the very hole all 400 workers disappeared. Their reasoning was that if one man could make 400 bodies disappear, imagine what he could do with an entire town. Later, it was discovered that all 400 workers died trying to create an escape tunnel, and therefore Collins was hung for nothing. Dear God, I said to myself in shock. I was simply horrified at what I read. However, what caught my attention was that Collins didn't say just one man and woman. He said 2 men, which explained the footsteps, but not why one of them told me to wake up. I went to bed that night after watching some documentary on whales. It didn't take me long to fall asleep, and once again I knew immediately that I had been in some forest. And then he was there. Or what I hoped would be him. Joseph? Joseph, what the—
Shh! She knows you're on your way there. You can't go there.
He interrupted me in a harsh whisper.
You need to wake up and stay the fuck out of the house, Julie. You don't want to be—
But before he could finish his thought, a gunshot went off.
There they are. Get them.
One of the men said. I got up immediately and made a run for it. I thought Joseph was behind me, but some large dog was chasing me instead. It barked loudly as the men kept shooting at me. I barely dodged their shots, and just before I arrived at the gate, I stopped in my tracks. I realized quickly what Joseph tried to warn me about. There were lights surrounding the estate gates, and the estate itself looked as beautiful as it looked in the blueprints I saw of it. I heard the large dog growling and the mysterious men getting closer to me, but I couldn't see them. In fact, I couldn't see much of anything but the mansion on the hill. Its garden was well kept. Its beauty kept drawing me in. But I knew this was just a trap. Suddenly, Joseph shouted,
Julie, no!
And ran at me. Before he could try to stop me from entering, a loud gunshot went off, and I woke up crying as I had to process watching my best friend die in front of me to save me. Despite Joseph's warning, a week later, I moved into his former home. It was hard for me to sleep, but I felt myself ready to take that bitch on. The movers beat me to what would be my new home. However, when I arrived at the property, it was no longer a 2-story house. I took off my sunglasses, blinked a few times, and stared in complete shock. The movers asked where I wanted my belongings, but I couldn't believe what I saw. The beautiful garden, the gate, the red flowers growing all over the outside of the home. It was all there. One of the movers asked if I was okay, but I lied, forced myself to snap out of it, and pressed on. Even the greenhouse was there. And I know none of this was there because I sold this property 3 times. I almost lost it when my boss confirmed that yes, it was in fact the same property. I even checked my bank statements to see the commissions I made to the property, and it was doubled what I had. Maybe I'm going insane, I thought to myself. I went to this new home that I was now stuck with, and with a big gulp and a shaky hand, I opened the door. My heart raced in my chest as I saw that the home was dark and quiet. I walked in as my footsteps echoed through the large hallway. The door slammed itself behind me, and embarrassingly I jumped. Fuck! Welcome home, Julie. The voice came from the top of the stairs. I slowly looked up and saw her. Tori? She was covered in blood, from the chin down. It's just the form I use to lure people to my home. My real form is much more unique, she said as she began to descend the stairs. Suddenly, a hand grabbed my wrist and dragged me through the hallway as Tori began to scream in fury and started to chase us. Before I knew it, I was locked in a dark room with the one who saved me. He covered my mouth and ordered me to shush as we both suddenly heard what sounded like legs. Dozens of pointed legs tapping through the hallway that we were just in.
Julie, I tried to warn you to get the hell out and never come back. Why didn't you listen?
Because I couldn't, I said in a harsh whisper. I was lured here. I couldn't control myself. I wanted to break down crying, but I was scared of that thing finding us.
Shh. It's okay, Jules,
Joseph said as he put his hand on my shoulder. I couldn't see his face, but based on how he said it, I knew something was wrong. His breath felt cold against my face, and his grip slowly began to get tighter and tighter until it started to hurt. Joe, let go of me, you're hurting me. There was silence in the freezing darkness.
You are hers now,
he said in a weak and raspy voice. I tried to get away, but he quickly pushed me against the hard wooden door. And just like the others before you,
You can't escape.
Then Tori walked to Joseph's side. Don't worry, Julie.
You're part of something greater than yourself. In time, you'll serve me too. But we will all be one big happy family.
She laughed evilly at her own remark. She carved her way into me as I screamed loud enough for it to echo through the house. She took her time cutting me open, and I was forced to see what lingers in the darkness. The victims this fake Tori took. Joseph's sorrowful face. The smiles of her henchmen, and worst of all, the victims that I gave her unintentionally. Life left me, and I had no one to blame but me.
That Archer you saw? He's just one of many. They're all over the place. They are amassing an army. And what we have to do is face them. We are at the end of time. So I'm about to blow the trumpet.
Hey guys, this is Kyle Hester, Preacher 6. Do me a favor and please support the Patreon below to help keep independent film alive. Let's keep this train rolling. Be sure to click like on this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for all of your support.